Hello? Who is this? This is Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface, from the Scream franchise, and you're listening to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. So you like scary movies, huh? What's your favorite scary movie? And it better be the right answer, or I'll... Well, you know the rest. Thank you. You're such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. Or better yet, see you in your home.
Well, that just happens to be exactly what I'm looking for.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate it. And before we jump into this film review, I just want to give a shout out to our website, www.don'tgoouthere.com. We got our online stores up. And I've been repping heavy, a lot of the new gear. I had Brother Mike's shirt on the other day, was repping it, call me sometime. I had our the logo or the artwork Brian did. I got that shirt. It's awesome. We got new hats, tumblers, all the good stuff. Y'all check it out. And I just want to give a quick shout out to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just Don't Go Out There. You'll find us. And tonight we're reviewing Brother Mike's movie, 1980's The Shining. And I'll go ahead and let Mike go first with his general overview of this movie. Go ahead, brother.
So I picked this movie partially because Nico hadn't seen it, and it was time for him to see a classic. So that's one big reason why I picked this movie.
Well, that's a big group of movies to pick for him.
Right. Right, I know, but he does a horror podcast. It was time he watched the damn Shining. So he finally got to do that, so that's good.
Hey, Brian hasn't even seen either of the Conjurings. Come on, man.
I know. But The Shining...
that's because I was scared. I was scared to watch it.
In fairness, and I love the Conjuring movies, but The Shining is more famous as far as horror goes. So you had to see a classic. Although the Conjurings are classic too. But anyway, the other reason I picked the movie is because it's interesting to talk about. We're going to have to cover it anyway at some point. Again, we do a horror movie podcast. Got to break down The Shining at some point. So it felt like the right week to do it. It was between this and Bride of Chucky, another classic.
I didn't know those were the choices.
Yeah, those were the choices. So I think both would have been fun shows for different reasons. So I'm excited to talk about it. As far as my viewing experience, I saw this movie pretty soon after I started diving into horror, like right after Halloween 2007. I kind of saw it, I don't know, maybe about a couple weeks after that. I was like, well, I got to start here. Well, I had to at least see that movie. I enjoyed it then. I enjoy it now. There's some things about it I don't enjoy as much as I did the first time I saw it, but I still think for what it is, it holds up. I will say my qualms with this movie is the script, but I do think this movie is shot really well from a direction standpoint. I think sound is really good, even though sometimes it becomes a little much. But I think the cinematography is fantastic. I think the visuals are great. They don't always make sense, and people try to defend that as some big master plot. We're going to get into that too, but I still think visually it's a really, really awesome movie to look at. So, and big props to Jack Nicholson for just doing a great job at Jack Torrance. I think his acting in this movie is fucking phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal. And we might not love Shelley Duvall, but I actually think for the character that's written for her, she plays it pretty damn well. And so, I mean, I hope so because Stanley Kubrick basically tortured her. So let's hope that she deserves her roses as well. So I'm excited to talk about it.
All right, I'll go next real quick. Like Mike said, I hadn't seen this movie until Saturday morning. I actually tweeted I was going to watch it Friday night, but my ass passed out about 8:30 Friday night because I was exhausted. I'm not going to get too deep into it because all of us in our little group text, we've been kind of secretive about our rating, which I'm really excited for. Like Mike said, Jack Nicholson, incredible. I think the cinematography in this movie is great. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not even going to tease my thoughts that much. Brian, go ahead and go next.
Yikes. All right. Well, let me just say this may not be a popular opinion, blasphemous to some. I don't know, but I do not like Stanley Kubrick films. I mean, Full Metal Jacket is literally the only one that I even honestly care for at all. Let me just say, like, those three supposed subliminal hidden theories in this movie, those theories are exhausting to even research, by the way, or listen to someone tell you or read. I'm pretty sure Dustin and Mike are going to get into those.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Hopefully. But I'm just going to try to look at this as like a film without any of that, because like I said, they're just kind of exhausting to me. The only interesting part of them all is like the number 42 thing, which I just hear and I'm like, why? But you'll get into that. This is celebrated, I think, probably as Kubrick's best film, and one of the best Stephen King adaptions of all time. One of the best horror movies of all time by, a lot, that I would say. But I honestly don't agree with those three. I like this movie for what it is. I hated this movie when I watched it the first time. Upon this rewatch, I watched it a long time ago. I will give it that. But upon this rewatch, again, I like it for what it is, I guess. I really do feel like that it's, because of the director, honestly, that I feel the way that I do. I actually like Dr. Sleep, and the runtime doesn't bother me. The runtime doesn't bother me at all because, I'll get into that later, but I can't imagine I will put this movie in and watch it again anytime soon. It's just not an easy watch to me, and I know I made the comment about this movie last week and how long it was and how it was too long, whatever. But, and normally we say, you could cut out about 15 minutes here. You could easily cut out an hour of this movie to me, and not really lose anything. And that to me is a Stanley Kubrick thing, not a Stephen King thing.
I agree with that.
Go ahead, Dustin.
So I don't know that I'd necessarily do agree with that. I've been kind of nitpicky on the length of films here and there. But this one, honestly, a lot of this movie I feel is building the anticipation for Jack to flip his shit. And boy, does he ever. And so I think that it does a good job. I mean, think about what the story they're trying to tell. It's a story of cabin fever, basically. Hell, you almost get cabin fever watching the film. So I think it does a good job of building the anticipation for the climax. So I don't have a problem with the runtime of the film. Jack Nicholson is a god, much better than that bum Brad Pitt.
Oh my
God.
I didn't mean to say that. That was Tourette's. Shelley Duvall, say what you will about her. I rank this second only to Suburban Commando and Shelley Duvall films. Okay, comedy's out of my system.
Come on, brother.
I think that this is a fantastic movie. I'm probably going to end up being higher on this movie than the rest of you all, which is kind of role reversal from where we've been. I'm a big Stephen King fan, and even though this doesn't follow the book necessarily, Stephen King's footprints and fingerprints are all over it, though. I really like Stanley Kubrick as well. So, Brian, yeah, we're polar opposites here, pal. Clockwork Orange.
I about to say that's my other
Space Odyssey.
I love Clockwork Orange.
And then, of course, Full Metal Jacket, like you said. I think that he is eccentric enough to make his bizarre choices acceptable. So he's so out there that you just like, oh, this guy's a fucking genius. So I really like him and all the things he shot. Not just movies. We'll get into that.
Oh dear God.
That's some foreshadowing. But no, I really like this movie. It's a classic. I hadn't seen it in about 17 years until the other day when I rewatched it. It's one of those that, like you said, I'm not necessarily gonna hurry to rewatch, but you can't deny its significance. You can't deny. I mean, for the fact that it was made in 1980. I think that Kubrick did a fantastic job of avoiding the special effects because they would have aged like a carton of milk. So he rewrote the script a little bit to make it shy away from the book. I'll get into that a little bit later if you guys don't. But there are certain things he took out because special effects just wouldn't have made it hold up over time. But the movie that did come out of this does hold up over time. I think it's It's eerie. I mean, this is a creepy ass movie, and I think that's what you look for in horror. That's what makes it stand the test of time. Is that here it is, all these years later, and 40 years later, and it's still holding up just fine. So.
That's definitely the thing with Kubrick. It's almost, there's no in between. You really almost love everything he does. He's a genius, or you really, honestly, you're just not interested at all in his stuff. So, I mean, it's a very interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Hey, by the way, you said something that we can get started. This show is really good for either A, making us see movies we've never seen, which is really good, and 2, busting out a movie you haven't seen, like you said, in 17 years.
Yep.
And making you, wow, I fucking love this movie, or wow, this movie sucks. I don't remember it the way that I did 20 years ago, or whatever, And I think that is one reason. It's probably the third reason why I picked this movie, because I hadn't watched it in a very long time, and I felt like it needed a rewatch. And like you guys said, I agree. It's not something I'm gonna pop in all the time,
right?
But I will say I'm probably going to own it after this watch.
Same, and I will follow that up before we get into the scene by scene. I will follow that up by saying I guarantee it won't be another 17 years before I rewatch it.
That's true.
I enjoyed it so much when I rewatched it this time. I was like, okay, I need to watch this more often. 17 years. I mean, damn, I could have got my driver's license again. Come on.
But I'm not watching it tomorrow or anything. So
hell no, I'm still creeped out.
All right, before we jump into scene by scene, this is a 2.5-hour movie, so this is going to be kind of a long episode, but I'm excited to take this journey with you fellas, because I think it's going to be interesting hearing our ratings at the end of this, because there's a lot of mystery in this movie and in our ratings, but let's jump into it. The film starts with a nice score and an overhead shot of a car driving on country roads towards the mountains. Opening credits. We get a title card that says The Interview. Jack tells the receptionist he has an appointment with Mr. Ullman. He enters the office and they have small talk. Now to Wendy and Danny at the table. They're just eating some sandwiches, and they're talking about not having enough kids to play with and all that. Then it cuts right back into Jack's interview. Ullman tells Bill, another guy who enters, that he will be watching over the overlook for the winter. The season lasts from May to October. It's too costly to keep open. That's because Jack asks, why don't you have it open for skiing and all that? Ullman tells Jack the job details over the winter. Jack says he needs the isolation to write his new book. And then they tell Jack about the tragedy in 1970. Charles Grady had a mental breakdown. He killed his family with an axe, and he stacked their bodies neatly in a room and then killed himself with a shotgun. Jack calls Wendy and tells her he won't make it home before 9 or 10. Danny is talking to himself in the mirror with a creepy voice. We get a flash of blood coming down the hallway, and we see a flash of the Grady girls. A doctor is examining Danny. Ask about when he was brushing his teeth. Were there any flashing lights? Did you experience any weird smells? Says he was talking to Tony, an imaginary friend in his mouth. The doctor says nothing physically is wrong with Danny, to the mom Wendy. Been in Boulder for 3 months from Vermont. Danny starts talking to Tony after Father Jack dislocated his shoulder. But the good thing after this is Jack quit drinking. All right, that's the first 2 opening scenes I got wrote down. Mike, this is your pick. You want to give us your thoughts on the first 2 scenes, man?
Oh yeah, sure. So right out the gate, I think that opening shot is really cool. I think it's really well shot. Again, cinematography. I love the mirror lake. I don't know. Maybe me and Dustin will touch on this, but mirrors are definitely a theme throughout this whole fucking movie. And even right out the bat, with how you can see the reflection off the lake, I think that's definitely something that's in the themes. Unlike some of the other crackpot theories that are out there, I think this is a real one. I think mirrors are a big thing. Jack Nicholson looks crazy from the beginning, and if I have a small criticism, that would be it. The descent into madness is still really well done and really well acted, but Jack Nicholson just has a crazy look on his face almost the entire time. It's just how the man looks. If you've seen Anger Management, he looks crazy in that damn movie too. So he's just kind of a crazy looking guy. I still think the casting is great. Creepy kids are creepy kids, man. And we talked about it. I'm not huge on like haunting and possession and all that stuff, but when it's done with kids, like The Omen, or in this movie, there's 2 different sets where you've got Danny and you've got the 2 girls. I just think kids make it a little bit creepier for me, a little more unsettling. I'm uncomfortable with I'm uncomfortable right out the date with the Danny visions and all that stuff. And they kind of, I like how they lay the seed for Jack already kind of having issues. He's an alcoholic. He broke Danny's shoulder or whatever. And so you get this view right out of the gate to me. Shelley Duvall's character, Wendy, is very soft-spoken, very almost shy in a way. And so she's looking like the complete opposite of Jack Torrance that sits in the office. So, again, I like the counterpart there, and it's going to come into effect later. And I know that's a difference from the way the book is written, but I think for the movie, I think it plays better with Jack's descent into madness. That's my opinion. So, and again, some of the, you got to watch this movie a couple times to me to really kind of grasp this whole Grady murder thing, but we get into it a little bit more as it goes. But I like that they set that up right off the bat, and I like that they mentioned the two girls because it's going to come into effect later. So I like these scenes. They do run a little long. There is some dialogue that I'm like, why is this in here? And I know it's building to something, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big slow burn guy, but even for me, these scenes run just a little too long. So, just the dialogue. But I like this, the tension and all that. So, really well done.
All right, Brian. I see you smiling. Go ahead and go next, brother.
I definitely feel like I'm Drew in this episode. I feel like, look, I think that's. I mean, props to them for doing that opening with a helicopter, and it looked nice. This is my problem. One of my problems with Stanley Kubrick films. Like some people, like Mike just said, think or look at these kind of shots and stuff and are like, man, this is such art. Kubrick's a genius, and I'm just like, man, this was way too long and boring of an opening to me. And it's like 2001: Space Odyssey, same way to me. And I know that's an unpopular opinion. But I don't know. It's mine, and honestly, also just a critique. I kind of would have rather seen this at night. I don't know. I think it would have maybe made it a little bit different of an atmosphere, just in my opinion. I will say this does have a great soundtrack. This movie does have a great soundtrack. It definitely gives the movie a sinister tone that I don't think it absolutely would not have otherwise. We've talked many times, especially Mike's talked many times about soundtrack, being its own character. And I think the first time we said that was back in the Halloween 78 episode. Not the other two movies called Halloween, just the first Halloween. but it absolutely does. It does that here because there's some scenes that without the music telling me that it's supposed to be creepy or suggestive, honestly, to me, it wouldn't otherwise be. By now, most of us know that Stephen King wasn't a big fan of this movie, but especially this interview scene. And Mike kind of touched on this, but he said it kind of made it seem like Jack was crazy, long before the Overlook Hotel. And, I'm not sure I really agree with that, honestly. I think that's, like he said, I think it's just Jack Nicholson. It didn't come across that way to me. With that said, I can definitely see why King wasn't a fan, of the whole movie, honestly, or even that, because, Kubrick cut out, huge pieces, like Dustin said, of his book and changed a lot of stuff that, look, if you criticize King over that, you've obviously never had something, that you've created and then had someone else take it and change it and say, here you go, world. So, I know King tried, to fund some type of miniseries, I think, later. I never saw it, but, it just didn't catch on like this one did for some reason. I get it. I think I'm in the minority of how I feel about that film, about this film, like I've said before. And I just don't have really an emotional attachment to it that a lot of people, I think, do have. As far as the imaginary friend, Tony, in the book, I think he's explained in depth a lot more, like Tony is definitely a, quote unquote friend. But they kind of leave him I don't know, him, her, whatever, a little bit more mysterious in this movie. But nothing says friend more than, visions of hallways filled with blood and creepy twin girls. But I will give that, and I wrote it down later too. But I will give that actor his name escapes me right now, but he did a great job, especially doing the voice of Tony. I thought that was
Danny
great.
Lloyd. Danny Lloyd.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's another man. People are gonna hate me after this, but Shelley Duvall's acting. So again, I say this every time I complain about acting. I'm not an actor, but the fact that she got nominated for a Razzie for this film, so it kind of tells me I'm not the only one who thinks that this performance isn't really great. But I feel that saying that, honestly, because I know how much of a tyrant Kubrick was on set, basically being mean to her the entire time and even having crew members and himself just like scare her constantly with jump scares to get her, just an emotional wreck. But, pretty abusive behavior, like you said. But I'll go into a little bit more about how many takes he made these actors do and stuff like that. And I'm sure you guys will too. But I mean, tons of actors love the guy. So including her own words. So, what do I know? Plus, I know she's stacked up against Nicholson here, which is, an impossible feat in itself. But the final performance they chose for her in this film, to me, is not really a good one. I'll just say it like that. And lastly, the doctor appointment. The whole backstory of the child abuse and the drinking and almost ripping his arms off. I agree with Mike too. I like this aspect. Not the actor or anything, but like the backstory, because you immediately know that Jack has this very, very dark side of him, already, and you know what he's capable of.
So I like the opening scene for a couple reasons, but I dislike it for a couple of reasons. So it does a good job of setting the tone and everything, which is great. The opening credits are phenomenal.
Yeah, I
Phenomenal
agree.
choice of ominous music that they're playing. The score for this film is fantastic. I think it really helps. It's like Mike has said before. It's the score itself is a character in this film. Um, what kind of an arrogant asshole sits in a job interview like Jack was sitting though? That I remember watching this because the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't interviewing for jobs. I wasn't employed at the time. I was in high school, like a freshman in high school. But now, professional Dustin's watching this like, bitch, if you don't sit up straight and show me some posture, I'm gonna hire someone else to get murdered in this hotel. But
That's
I
professional,
mean,
Dustin.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Come on now, pal.
but no. So that is what it is. I thought that the casting for this movie doesn't line up with what Stephen King said wanted. Like you said, he wanted someone that was normal looking so that you could really tell their progression into psychosis, whereas Jack Nicholson looks batshit crazy every day of his life to this day. And Shelley Duvall, what he had in mind for Wendy was this cheerleader type that's never faced any kind of hardships in her life
Right.
that would make her breakdown more substantial. And so, whereas Stephen King has come out and said that he feels like Wendy is traumatized from the beginning, and she is.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I think that they do a good job of, I say they do a good job, but really it's kind of weird how they do it. Like, oh, the people in Denver didn't tell you. There was a guy that murdered his family here. It's like, oh, gee, I wonder if that's going to come into play later.
No.
And then, Danny Lloyd. Hats off to Danny Lloyd. What a job by
Yeah.
that, young kid. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last thing I'll say. Oh well, I guess not the last thing. So I do wish they would explain Tony a little bit more and
Yeah.
why the hell he was moving his finger like this. If you look into it, it's explained that he moves his finger so that when Tony's talking, but at the same time, you can tell he's listening at the voice.
Right.
But I'm assuming the book does a better job. I haven't read
Dives
the book.
into-
I've only
He
read
is a
about the
Hey,
book.
hey, Dustin, that I actually read that the finger thing was all improv from the actor. He
Yeah.
started doing that, just improv.
I
Hey.
read that too. He apparently did that in the audition, and that was a big
Yeah.
selling point for him getting the role. So I wish though
Hey,
that they would have.
he's huge in the book. Tony is a
Yeah.
big character in the book.
Yeah, and speaking of Tony, apparently in the book, his middle name, Danny's middle name is Anthony, so that's where Tony comes from, allegedly. But one last thing that I'll say about the opening scenes, though, this is what I was looking for. I couldn't find it in my notes. So the outtakes were used for the original release of Blade Runner. So they had enough outtakes left over that weren't used in the film that
Jesus
Ridley
Christ.
Scott
crazy.
was like, yeah, I feel good about this. They weren't used in that film, so yeah, those Volkswagen scenes are actually used in the original Blade Runner happy ending scene.
Hey Dustin, you were talking about Wendy, being like sheepish, and to me, like she really reminded me of Adrian from Rocky,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
Talia
She
Shire.
did.
Yeah, she
And
does.
I
Yeah.
mean, and
Good
I know
point.
what you said about Stephen King, writing that character completely different and being, kind of a lot stronger and stuff. But to me, she almost has to be like this to make it believable because, I mean, it's only somebody that was kind of
Yeah.
sheepish and like this would even stay with someone that's obviously an abusive alcoholic. So to me, it
Yeah.
did make it a lot more
Well,
believable. I will say
right.
that.
For Kubrick's vision, yes, because I don't think that Stephen King's original vision were for him to be abusive and abrasive and
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah.
like this.
Exactly.
So to
Exactly.
be this all-American couple, and then after they've been in this hotel for so long, he snaps. So one last thing though, when we were talking about the Shelley Duvall character, that reminded me of the doctor scene. So remember how long she said he's done without alcohol? 5 months.
5 months.
Later in the film, Jack tells Lloyd that was 3 years ago. So wait a minute, pal. Okay, so you about jerked your damn kid's arm off 3 years ago, but you quit drinking 5 months ago because of it. Come on, that was I have a hard time believing that anything in a Kubrick film is a mistake. He's so elaborate and so
Right.
intentional with
You're
right.
everything he
You're
does.
right about that. You're right.
But I feel like this movie, if it was Stanley Kubrick's actual vision, this movie would be 4.5 hours long. Because I have a feeling he cut out so much of these little plot holes. He had to cut them out for time's sake. But I would like to see what his original vision was. I wouldn't watch it all in one sitting, but I'd like to know what it was.
It would be an
Well,
hour and a half of just overhead shots of the hotel and the grass and the
Someone-
bushes and the maze.
You
Someone
sound
is-
like a hater.
I'm about to say someone's apparently not a big fan of Mr. Kubrick. Have you
Well-
seen this? Have you seen the moon land? Oh, never mind. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, we'll get there.
Jack says that the bar has been the most miserable 5 months, but we'll get there in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
All right, closing day. Family is driving to the hotel. We're at the hotel now. The Ullman gives the family a tour of the hotel. Danny is throwing darts. Then he sees the Grady girls at the door, but they walk out. Ullman shows Jack and Wendy their apartment. Now he takes them to the hedge maze. He's just giving them a little tour. Halloran shows, what is Halloran's what, the head chef? Halloran
Yes.
is the chef, and he's showing Wendy and Danny the kitchen. And I wrote this down, Brian. He asked Danny what's his favorite food. I wrote French fries and Brian's favorite, ketchup. I wrote there's an awful score when they enter the dry food closet. Danny is in a trance. Halloran takes Danny to get ice cream as the parents go check out the basement. Halloran tells Danny they both have, and I put this in quotations, the shine. Danny says he's not supposed to talk about it because Tony said so. Tony shows him things, but he can't remember it when he wakes up. He asks Halloran if he's scared of this place. He then asks if he's scared of room 237. Halloran says nothing's in there but to stay out. 1 month later, Danny is riding the fuck out of his toy tricycle. Wendy brings breakfast to her in Jack's room. She asks Jack to take them on a walk, but he says he has to write first. Wendy says she was scared of the hotel at first. Jack says he felt right at home. Now Jack is throwing a ball at the wall, like in his where he writes and stuff. Wendy and Danny go into the maze. Jack looks over like a replica maze in the hotel. And now it's Tuesday. Wendy sees on the TV a huge snowstorm is on the way as she opens a big-ass jar of fruit cocktail. Danny is back on the tricycle. He pauses as he passes room 237. Quick flash of the Grady girls as he tries to open the door. Jack is at his typewriter going to town. Wendy approaches and he rips a page out as she asks about his day and says a snowstorm is coming. And Jack says, what do you want me to do about the weather? And Jack snaps, saying she breaks his concentration every time she comes in. And then he says, how about getting the fuck out of here, he says. And he starts typing again. And I just wrote, you can see he's really slipping into madness. Dustin, you want to go first on those two scenes, man?
Sure, I'll go first on this. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Nico for those beautiful descriptions of these scenes.
Man,
I
we
mean,
get Spaghetti Death House last week, and now this. Man, you're on
we're
a
riding the
roll.
fuck out of our big wheels. But no, the tour. First of all, how sexist is it that only Wendy got to see the kitchen? Come on, I know it's 1980, but the man needs to see the kitchen too. Second of all, second of all, Dick is my favorite character in this film, and I think he's the most likable character of everyone, but also he's the voice of Hong Kong Phooey. Shout out to Scatman Crothers. I grew up watching Hong Kong Phooey. Big fan. The next thing that we're going to get into, though, is just the clear discrepancy here in the age, either in the story that Jack was given when he took the job, or the story that was reported. I don't know, because these girls are twins. When he was first told about these murders, they were 8 and 10. He killed his daughters around 8 and 10. So these girls they're twins. That bugs the shit out of me. Sticks in my craw. Dick explaining,
doesn't make mistakes.
It's not a mistake, so there has to be some reasoning. I need to read his notes. The ice cream conversation was a great job of explaining The Shining. The unfortunate thing to me, though, is that it's the only scene in which the words "The Shining" is uttered. Like, for it to be the title of a film, it needs to have more prominence, right? Like,
That
I
is
get
Stanley Kubrick 101, by the way.
I
That's all.
know. We get Tony, and later in the scene when he uses his Captain Planet powers to summon Dick from halfway across the country, we get that, but we don't get the phrase "The Shining" other than a 2-sentence blurb, and if you miss it, you miss it. So that was a little disappointing, I guess. Let's see, the time cards. What the fuck are they supposed to even mean? Because one of them says Tuesday, one of them says a month later, one of them says 8 a.m. throughout this film. The time cards are confusing. I think they're meant to drive you crazy. I think those are just meant to show that there is no concept of time. It doesn't matter if it's Tuesday. It doesn't matter if it's next month. It's kind of like quarantine 2020. Time cards are time cards. Dates are dates. It doesn't matter. Like the points in Whose Line Is It Anyway? Anyway, room 237. So we got some 237 earlier. There's a couple lines of thoughts on that. The original room number in the book was 217.
Right.
However, 217 was a real room in the hotel that inspired the film.
Right.
So they asked that Stephen King change it. So he changed 237. Allegedly. That's one line of belief.
Oh,
the other line of belief I'm going to get into later.
Just wait. Yeah,
I'm going to get in. Yeah, I'm going to hold off on the other line of belief, which is my personal, the one I subscribe to. But interesting thing about room 237, the words "do not disturb," 2 letters, 3 letters, 7 letters. I thought that's purely coincidental. There's no way I can change my mind about that, but that's cool. Jack flipped his shit on Wendy for no fucking reason. And the first time you watch this, you're probably like, "What the hell? What a dick!" Like, she's just wanting to bring you a sandwich or go on a walk, and you're telling her to, whether you see me in here working or whether you don't see me working, get the fuck out. And I was like, holy shit, man. Like, that's misogyny 101. I'm kind of proud, kind of disappointed. So good couple scenes here. I thought that this is really when it starts to pick up. The opening scenes I liked, but these scenes I loved. And mostly it's because Dick Halloran, my man, Scatman Crothers.
I was about to say Scatman Crothers, baby.
Best name of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so, hey, man, you kind of said everything I want to say about these scenes, but I'll give it a little bit here. Again, I mentioned scary kids. The Grady sisters just creep me out. I like these scenes a lot. I think there's a lot here, and like good brother Nico mentioned, he rides the fuck out of his tricycle. I know some people didn't like it, but I really like the sound there. I think it emphasizes it makes me unsettled, like I'm uncomfortable. The backdrop of the rest of the movie, and then it's all quiet and still, and then you get that sound: carpet, floor, carpet, floor, carpet. It's so freaking. I love it. I think it's really, really, really well done. And the scene, the scene where Jack goes off on Wendy is actually pretty fucking great. Like, Like,
Yeah.
you really feel bad for Wendy in that case because she's being, an actual good wife, and she's being sweet, and he's being a dick. And the first time you see it, you don't. You look. It's an old movie. You know that he descends into madness, but he hasn't had any alcohol in 5 months. So he's just this fucking guy writing,
Just a dick.
and he's just being a dick. And it's like, wow, man, I hope somebody kills you. Like, I know that's not how this is going to go, but fuck this guy. And so
Well, also he was sweet to her earlier in the film. That's why it's so
Right.
shocking. Anyway.
Well, even in the scene where he's laying in bed and she brings him food, she's like, I was kind of weirded out at first, and he goes, really? I felt like I was at home the whole time. I already started to see the dick tendencies in that scene. I'm like, oh, you really are an asshole. So, by the way, Brother Dustin said that he summoned Dick from however many miles away. That could mean two things.
Oh, come on. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it.
Hey,
at least we're not going to get canceled for my view on Stanley Kubrick. Thank you.
So and I like these scenes between Danny and Scatman Carruthers because I think that, man, I'm not a big fan of the whole psychic element of this movie. Like, it's not my favorite part because it's not really my cup of tea. But I think I think that they both do a good job acting those scenes out. I mean, again, this is a little kid, and he does a really good job of, like, conveying fear, but also he knows something that these other people, or that his mom doesn't, and these other people don't. Well, there's not many people there, but I think those scenes are good. I kind of wish Scatman Crothers had a bigger part in the movie, though, but that's neither here nor there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So dad part here, but there were seatbelts on the two adults in that car, but not the kid. I just wanted to say that.
I knew you were.
Man, you know the saying. Man, fuck them kids. You didn't give a shit.
Shout out James Coleman.
And Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and I will also say that Jack seems honestly way more crazy in that opening scene that he did the interview. To me, the tour part to me took really long, but I don't know if you guys noticed this, but did you notice the Playgirl magazine that Jack put down when the two walked up to him?
Yeah. What? Okay.
It's correct. Yeah. Okay.
Was that Shawn Michaels on the front of that?
Okay, goddamn.
Or wrestler Shawn Michaels? No? Okay.
By the way, there were 85 takes for that walk and talk through the kitchen. So
It's absurd.
And I know you said that we only hear The Shining, this one, but damn, I mean, he says shining a lot. So when we learn Shining, and Dick tells him that only people shine with The Shining, can sense the undershiny people with The Shining. So I mean, he says a lot. He says it a lot in that sentence. So yeah, shit, I'm gonna get slaughtered.
I guess I meant spread it out a little bit more.
Seriously, I mean, though, I think that conversation went on a little too long. Also, side note, they did 80 something takes for that particular scene as well. Like Mike said, I love the tracing, the Danny on the big wheel, just from going from wood to carpet. I thought that was, I really like the lack of soundtrack in that too. And damn, yeah, you're gonna get pissed. All right, so Danny gets to room 237, 45 minutes into the movie. So, and I wrote down, let me pause to stretch the sentence out to make me seem more like Kubrick, because making things unnecessarily long seems to be his forte.
Wow.
Wow. I knew you were gonna love that, but I know there's a lot in the Stephen King book, but it's not even all here. And to me, like, It, for instance, is long, but it didn't seem that long because of the content. I felt like there was a lot of stuff happening in that movie, and I felt like a lot of stuff got cut out of this book. I guess that's frustrating, that I would have liked to have seen instead of, the long tracking shots for 10 or 15 minutes. That's all. Okay, let me praise this movie a little bit, especially Jack Nicholson, because, there's obvious reasons why this made Jack Nicholson's career right here. His performance, especially in this scene in particular, is amazing. We've seen a few movies now with slips into madness like Amityville Horror and things like that, but this is by far the best one, and honestly the best one that I've ever seen. This is Jack Nicholson. He gives this character to me so many different sides. You got the normal Jack Torrance, the alcoholic Jack Torrance, the maddening Jack Torrance. His performance to me is honestly nothing short of extraordinary in this film.
Brian's gonna give this movie like a 4.75,
I
5
think
maybe.
he's gonna rate it higher than I think.
Oh, I do have one more note about the ride the fuck out of the big wheel scene. Uh, I'm sure you guys probably have this in your notes. I have it. I had it further down in my fun facts, but since you brought it up, so this was one of the first films to use the Steadicam,
Yeah,
and
I have that too. Yeah.
and oh, so sorry, didn't mean to
Oh, that's
steal
okay.
it.
No, dude,
But
that's one thing I don't have to say. I don't feel good anyway.
But one of the cool things about this film, and just to show you the commitment to Kubrick and how he goes all out in everything he does, was actually the creator of the Steadicam that filmed that scene
I
and
did
used
not
the
know that.
Steadicam for this film. So it wasn't just one of those things. Okay, the Steadicam's been out for a couple films now. I think this was like the second or third film to use it, and it wasn't like, okay, we can do this. He's like, no, let's get this right. Let's bring in the creator, the guy that knows the ins and outs of how to use this thing. And so that's why, to me, that's why that scene is so stunning, is because the guy that shot it, that's his baby.
All right, Thursday. Wendy and Danny are playing in the snow. Jack is in a trance as he stares outside. That's like, that's kind of one of those iconic, visuals of this movie, of him just staring out the window. Saturday, back to typing. Wendy notices the phones are out because of the snow. A radio is their only form of communication to the outside world. The officer tells Wendy to leave the radio on at all times. Danny is riding out again. He turns a corner, and there's the Grady girls. And I just wrote, this is the iconic shot of this movie. Come play with us, Danny. He sees their dead bodies from the axe chops. Forever and ever. He covers his eyes and they're gone. He tells Tony he's scared, and Tony says it isn't real. Monday. Danny leaves his mom watching TV to go build his train engine. He goes in their apartment and sees Jack sitting on the edge of his bed strangely. Jack hugs his son and asks him how it's going, and he's sitting on his lap. He tells him he wants him to have a good time. He asks Jack, do you feel bad? Do you like this hotel, Dad? I wish we could stay forever and ever, Jack says. You would and then Danny asks, you would never hurt Mommy and me, would you? And then he says, I love you, Danny, more than anything else in the whole world. And I just wrote awkward AF. That's the two scenes I got wrote down. Brian, do you want to go real quick?
Yeah. All right. So Danny flashes of the 8 and 10-year-old twins dead as he continues to ride the fuck out of his big wheel around. I was getting a little bit excited here because, finally there's a little bit of action here, especially coupled right after that radio conversation between Wendy and the wildlife officer over, kind of unnecessary over. The conversation on the bed, though, I understand this is another nitpick, I guess, but I understand the soundtrack, and wanting you to know it's creepy. But to me, like, Nicholson's performance is almost not done justice here because of the soundtrack being so damn overwhelming in the scene. To me, he comes across creepy as hell anyway in that conversation. And again, if you feel like you have to use the soundtrack to let the audience know it's supposed to be a scary part, I think you've kind of missed the mark, or you don't really trust your actors to get across with their performances, and need, 100 plus takes. Oh, yeah, never mind.
Whew.
Anyway. Yeah, okay. All right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dustin.
All right. First of all, Brian's wrong. Second of all,
hey, from now on, everyone has to say over when they're done too. Over.
Oh, hell no. That's one of the worst parts of this whole movie.
Hey,
Agreed.
first of all, that's authentic over. So you can't
It was a little too much. Oh.
That's fine, but you can't discredit Kubrick for using proper etiquette on a fucking walkie-talkie. That's how things are done. Anyway.
Sounds like you
Over.
Sounds like you're defending Willie Taggart. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh my God. Don't talk about my coach like that. So yeah, the stoic nature of his gaze out the window shows me one thing. I need a turtleneck. I need me a turtleneck sweater.
The fuck out of that turtleneck.
Because Jesus Christ, like, there is nothing, like, there's a few iconic shots in this film, but the one that stands out to me is that lady killer look and that black turtleneck. So, second thing, if the phones aren't working, common sense to me says I want that radio to be closest to me where I'm going to be most of the time, not in some random ass office. So I'm probably going to jack that shit out the wall and put it in my bedroom. That's just me, though. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Danny seeing the girls in the hallway is such a well-done scene.
Yes,
because
I agree.
Danny Lloyd didn't even know this was a horror film. When he was filming this, his parents and everybody told him it was a drama. Of course, as a 6, 7-year-old kid, does he even know what that means? But he didn't know this was a scary film. So for him to convey that much terror in his look, in his face during that scene, it's top-notch acting. So shout out to Danny Lloyd again for that scene. And then we want you to play with us forever. And then for Jack to tell him, I want to stay here forever and ever. Okay, like that. Dad, I'm a kid, but let's get the fuck out of here. Let's go. I don't trust this place anymore. Dick done told me something ain't right about this place. Let's go, Dad. But great set of scenes. Brian's wrong. Over.
Hey, I'm here for the perspective. I'm here for the different perspective on this.
Can you start calling him Halloran instead of Dick? Because
no, his name is Dick.
It's not, you're not using it great, but that's okay. Anyway, the radio scene runs long to me, over and over and over. Yeah, so you guys kind of already hit that, but the conversation on the bed is so creepy to me. Like, this is one of those little scenes that there's not a lot going on, but that is what makes it creepy. The back. It is just so well done. And by the way, it is a little thing that I would have, the first time viewing, I didn't notice, was the girls were saying forever and ever, and then he said, but upon a couple rewatches, you're like, oh God, that's so fucking creepy, because now everything is connected. Like, this isn't all in Danny's, crazy little head. This shit is really going down here. And, I agree with you guys. Jack Nicholson, man, I could honestly watch 4 hours of Jack Nicholson going crazy if it didn't have this all the long dialogue. If it was just 4 hours of him going absolutely nuts over and over again, I would love it. So, and by the way, I agree with Dustin on the turtleneck thing. That's the first thing I think of when I think of this movie is that scene staring out the scene where he's staring out the window in a fucking turtleneck. And it always makes me think, I think I could pull off a turtleneck. Especially when I get to the point where my hair starts to look like Jack's did. Where, I'm already losing some up top, but thick on the sides, but it's a little too long. It's longer than it should be. And now I'm going crazy. So I just I like these scenes for the little things, the nuances of the gaze out the window, the scene on the bed. And again, these Grady sisters just creep me the fuck out, man. And it takes a little bit to creep me out, but they make me feel uncomfortable. And I think, Dustin made a good point about the time cards. I think that's the whole point. Is everything if it is some big elaborate plan, not continuity errors, which I'm not 100% sold on, but that's fine. If it is a big elaborate plan, it's all to make you feel uncomfortable, super uneasy. And I think a lot of these scenes, if you buy it, if you're a Kubrick fan, I know Brian isn't, but if you're a Kubrick guy, I think it works. I think he makes me feel uncomfortable a couple of times, and it's tough to do that. A lot of movies don't do that, so I think these scenes kind of make me feel uneasy about where we're headed.
Wednesday, Danny is playing with his toy cars, and a random ball rolls up to him. He walks down the hallway as he calls for his mom. The door to room 237 is open. Wendy is in the boiler room. She runs towards a noise. Jack is grunting and yelling with his head on his desk. Wendy wakes him up and he appears horrified. Horrible nightmare, he says. He dreamed he killed Wendy and Danny, chopped them to pieces. Must be losing my mind, he says. Danny enters the room to see his parents. She tells Danny to go to the room. He's sucking his thumb and has these these bruises, these marks on his neck. Danny appears stoic. Jack is in a trance again. Wendy accuses Jack of doing it, and she runs out of the room with Danny. Jack walks down the hallway. He looks crazy as he enters the gold room. He walks to the bar and says he needs a beer. He rubs his face and says, "Hello, Lloyd," and this room was empty when he first walked in. He asks Lloyd for some bourbon. He doesn't have the cash he says he did. He tells Lloyd he's the best bartender. "Cheers to a miserable 5 months," he says. "Things could be a whole lot better, Lloyd." And then Lloyd says, women, you can't live with them and you can't live without them. Wendy finds Jack at the bar, and she says, a crazy woman choked Danny. And then Jack says, you out of your fucking mind? Hey, Dustin, you want to go first on those two scenes, man?
Sure, man. Yeah, I'll go first. So these scenes, this is a pivotal junction in the film.
Yeah.
Because there's been some freaky dicky shit going on, but only with Danny and Dick. You know, the Shining is
Did
stop.
you really have to say freaky stuff going on with Dick? It's weird.
He could have said big. Start calling him Big D.
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Danny and old man Dick, they got stuff going on that's just weird to them, and stop. I'm trying to convey my thoughts. So they're the only ones that some supernatural or freaky shit's been happening to, right? Like The Shining with them, Danny seeing the visions or seeing the girls. But now when you see Jack walk into this bar, it's chilling. He walks into the bar, there's no one there. He sits down, starts talking. All of a sudden, Lloyd shows up, and the bar's fully stocked. So I think that that scene right there does an incredible job of letting you know something's up, man. Like the rest of this movie, buckle up. But as far as the Danny going into room 237 and Jack having the nightmare, I mean, those are. I don't have much input on those scenes. I think they're very well done. Danny going into the room, you knew he was going to. Little bastard's looking at the room like, I got to go in there one of these days anyway.
Any kid would do the same
He's a
thing.
kid. He's a kid. Don't touch this. It's hot. Let me just see how hot. So you knew he was going to go in there. And then Jack having the nightmare. The one thing that I question in these scenes is Wendy walks in the room, wakes him up because he's screaming, freaking the fuck out. Then Danny walks in. Wow, you did this. You did this, didn't you? You did this. How you just saw him. He was asleep. You woke him up. Don't put that on my man. He was just trying to take a little cat nap and started having, night terrors. But
Sir.
What did I do? I'm just telling the truth. He didn't do that. And so
True. He didn't.
So yeah, that's how I feel about these scenes. You done got my line of thought all messed up just because I was talking about Dick and you started laughing. I can't focus right now, so that's what I got.
Go ahead, Brian.
So anyway, there was I will say right off the bat that I do like this group of scenes here. There was actually 50 takes for the ball to roll exactly into the frame in that opening scene you were talking about.
Insane.
But yeah, that's
so
crazy.
Ridiculous. Jesus Christ.
All right, but let me tell you the nightmare scene. I needed to see that. I needed to see it happening. Like I needed to see him killing his family and thinking it was real, and then boom, him being woken up. To me, I think that would have been more effective. I think it was an amazing scene with the bartender. We know it's in his head, but you can really see his slip into craziness here. And, you can really tell how much this went into his Joker performance in '89, especially that laugh. His laugh is there's a lot of similarities in the acting performances here, honestly. And the fact that they're both, the characters' names are Jack, as it is, Jack Napier in the '89 Batman film too. But, it's just the subtext in this scene, if you're fighting with your, quote unquote demons, in this case, alcoholism, is talked about when he says, he does about selling his soul for another drink. That's a very strong scene to me right there. And there, a lot of subtext for not only the movie, but, and all the subject it implies as well. Lastly, as Lloyd is obviously an implied, devil kind of type character, pushing him, in the direction of spiraling, out of control like he is. But the scene where he has his face up in his hands and then goes, "Oh, hello, Lloyd," with that big grin on his face. I don't know. That cracked me up. I loved it. I love the performance there.
Right. So for me, these scenes are all about the performance of Jack Nicholson. Like there is so much good here to me, showing the slide into madness, and I love his acting throughout this whole thing. even when he's quote unquote dreaming, it's so well done. Like I believe he's having a really bad nightmare, and I actually have. I just kind of wanted to mess with Dustin. I actually have it wrote down on my damn. We're throwing out accusations. I mean, you were standing right there. So I actually agree with you. However, for good reason, she had good reason to assume it could have been him since he kind of broke his shoulder already here. So
That was 3 fucking years ago.
it doesn't
That
matter.
tells Lloyd
It
that.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And you just had you just got through telling a woman you had a dream that he killed you all. So yeah.
Oh, so now dreams are indicative of
I'd be a little.
mischief? Come on.
Sir,
this
let's
is-
not defend Jack Torrance. Okay, so
Okay.
but
Wow.
okay.
Wow.
Scene in the bar is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It is clearly Jack going insane. There's nobody there. Then Lloyd's there. Then when Wendy comes into play, Lloyd's not there anymore. Like there's clearly some shit going on here. And remember, they talk about no alcohol being at the bar at the beginning of the movie. Now this bar has alcohol. So this is the scene where I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like every time I'm like, when do we see the shift into, oh, this place has a bunch of shit going down? And I think this is the scene because, again, you see Lloyd. Is Lloyd there? Is Lloyd not there? Like, what's going on? Again, no alcohol in the beginning. Now we have bourbon that he chugs. And I think that scene is so well acted by Jack. Like, it is just freaking, and Brian, he hit the nail on the head. That scene, hands, oh, hello, Lloyd. That is fucking hilarious. It's great. It's unintentional comedy because Jack Nicholson is so good at being a crazy person. And sometimes I see his anger management face in this movie, like the same face, even though it's about 20 years apart as far as making the film. But I see those faces and I see his Joker character, which I love his portrayal of the Joker. And so that whole collection of scenes is really about the acting to me. And I think that Jack nails it. And, the scene in the bar is one of my favorites because to me it really kickstarts what this movie is actually about, and it's needed at this point because again we're over an hour into this damn movie already. So
You say that like it's a bad thing. First of all, I want to say one more thing before we go back to Nico. You guys brought it up. Both of you brought it up. I was gonna wait until the scene that includes what I'm gonna say right now, but you brought up Batman. This is a prequel to Batman. Changed my mind. Jack didn't freeze to death. He survived, moved to Gotham, became Jack Napier, and his lifelong mission is to take out the Bat because the Bat took him out.
Well, that was after 7 though, right?
you laughed at me for my 7th theory, but this works. Fuck you.
This is Batman, pal. Anything goes.
Then 7 is a prequel. I don't want to hear anything else about it.
I don't buy that one.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. It's the truth. Anyway, please go ahead, Nico.
My head hurts from so much going on right now.
Nico's like, I've never seen any of these movies.
Halloran is in bed watching the weather, and I wrote he's got naked women art all over his room. He slips into a trance. He starts to shake, and we see Danny foaming at the mouth now. And now Jack sees a woman in a bathtub. She's naked, and she gets out of the tub. He smiles as she approaches. He walks towards her. They embrace and start kissing. He opens his eyes, and he sees an old woman now covered in sores approaching him as she laughs. Danny is twitching in his bed. Jack closes the door to room 237. All right, now give me just a minute because I wrote a lot for this, in the bathroom scene. Halloran types like an old person, I wrote. His call doesn't go through. Wendy hears a knock. Jack enters and says he didn't see anything. She starts to cry. She asks again if it was the right room. Jack says he thinks that Danny did those bruises, those scars to himself. Jack says there's no other explanation. Danny is in bed and his mouth is wide open. He sees red rum on the door. He sees blood coming down the hall. Jack snaps as she says they need to leave. Jack says she ain't fucking this up, and he storms out. Jack knocks dishes all over the floor. He creeps through the hallways and hears singing and sees balloons. Halloran calls the fire service. He asks the officer to radio the family at the hotel. Jack enters the gold room and sees the party going on. He sits at the bar and gets another bourbon from Lloyd. There's no charge. He takes offense to not having to pay, and he walks away with his bourbon. A butler spills drinks on Jack. The two go to the restroom to clean up. Jack seems puzzled when the butler says his name is Delbert Grady. He asks him if he was once the caretaker here. Jack asks where his wife and kids are. He says he saw Grady's picture in the paper, says he killed his family and blew his brains out. Grady has no recollection. Grady tells Jack, "You've always been the caretaker." Jack appears confused and smiles. Grady tells Jack his son is trying to bring an outsider into this. Then I wrote, there's a quick shot of some racism here. He tells Jack his son has a great talent. He says to Jack he's a naughty boy. Grady says the wife and son need a good talking to. Grady tells Jack he corrected his wife. Lot of good scenes right here, fellas. Settle, do you want to go first, brother?
Yeah, and here's what I want to say right off the jump. This is the chunk of the movie that it was intimidating to know that we were going to review, because this is where some of the iconic shots start to happen, and some of the, the really deep, as far as, the significance of it in the meeting. So when I'm writing, when I'm watching this the second time last week, I started to get a little nervous about how am I going to talk about these, because there is a lot going on here. So I will just kind of try to talk about it as a movie, save some of the theory stuff for later. Okay, so I'll be honest, I don't give a fuck about this Halloran side story. So, so to quote, to use Dustin's term, I don't give a fuck about dick. So, but no, I like the scene. I like the scene in room 237 because, well, one, it's the only time in the film I get to use a "call me sometime," so that's good. Until she morphs into old rotting lady. But before that,
I thought you were talking about the old lady with leprosy. I thought that's
no.
He was.
The hot woman she is beforehand is "call me sometime." But after that, by the way, that's a really God, that scene. The first time I ever watched this movie, that scene got me because it was so fucking gross. I'm like, I did not see it coming. So I still enjoy that scene. It kind of gives me a laugh. The old woman is fucking nuts. So it's a really, I enjoy that scene a lot. So not only is Jack, he's kind of a shitty person. He's now a pathological liar because he says he didn't see anything there. So that's always fun. So again, if we want to defend Jack, I guess we can keep going. But I like, again, when he starts knocking things on the floor and he goes back, you could clearly see he has lost it here. He gets a free drink and gets mad about it, which I don't think anybody should ever do. And then the scene in the bathroom is, to me, it starts to get a little confusing for me, because who was the caretaker? Who has the caretaker been? This is some of the stuff that leaves so many. There's a reason there's a documentary about theories about this movie. It's some of the dialogue here. It's so open-ended, and they leave it that way on purpose, and I think that's fine. But some of that stuff doesn't get answered, especially in the closing shot, which we'll talk about. Some of that stuff just doesn't get answered to my satisfaction. So I feel like it kind of takes away a little from the scene. But I love the dialogue, minus the the N-bomb. That's not cool. That's not cool. But I outside of that, I like this collection of scenes. But it was daunting to how am I going to describe all of this if you've never seen this movie? Which, by the way, I say this again: watch this movie, then come listen to the show. That's probably the best way to take that in. But I was intimidated breaking down that chunk of scenes.
Right. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is the part that you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to try to break this down. People are counting on me for my opinion on this. So this chunk of scenes right here is more confusing than the whole entire movie of the Inception. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Room 237. Woof. I literally typed out WOOF because when, try to put yourself in Jack's shoes. You're already going crazy. You may not realize it, but let's be honest, you're going crazy at this point. You walk in, you see this girl that, no offense to Wendy and Shelley Duvall, but she's an upgrade. And then you start, hell yeah, she's naked. Let's make out. Let's do the thing. And then you open your eyes and she's worse than Shelley Duvall. So yeah, I'm slamming that door too, fam. I feel you. But the best you could come up with is there's no one there. He made it up. Dude, you're in a big ass hotel. The room was empty. She must be somewhere else. Don't say he did it to himself. Like, how is that believable? Especially when you have a history of child abuse. So that's a little bit of a problem that I have with his alibi there, if you will.
That's the same thing.
Halloran in the bed. This is when you really get to see what The Shining's all about, because you saw in the ice cream scene when he's talking to and Dick's talking to Wendy. He's like, "You want some ice cream, Doc?" And his mouth doesn't match up for that. Thought you were watching a Hong Kong Fooey Chinese movie there for a minute, but then you find out it's because he's talking through The Shining. This is where you realize that you could talk using The Shining across the country. This is when Danny looks like he just popped a molly and he's summoning Dick from across the country. That's insane. Like, that's an impressive skill right there. Foaming out the mouth, that's great acting as well. So Danny does a great job yet again. He really stole the show. He might have outacted one of the top 10 actors of all time in Jack Nicholson in this film, and that's incredible considering he's like 7 years old. Come on, don't give me that look, Mike. So the rest of the film, the bathroom scene is wild because there's so much to unpack. You've always been the caretaker, and this is going to set up, the end of the movie, which I'm not going to give anything away because we're going to get there. But this really has some foreshadowing to the end of the film, and at least one theory in regards to the end of the film. But yeah, that Mike said the rest pretty much. There are themes with colors in this film too, in case you guys haven't picked up on that, or in case you're watching the film and you haven't picked up. A lot of red in a lot of the scenes. Yellow's another prominent film. The drink that he gets spilt on his sleeve is yellow. So there's a lot of themes as far as colors go in this film, which is, shout out to Stanley Kubrick. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Like, we're finally to the meat of this movie. It only took 4.5 hours, but we are finally here, baby. That is a freaky ass bathroom scene, and I can't really add a whole lot more to it except that it had a lot of it comes later in It Chapter 2 old woman naked vibes in it. So Stephen King had something about being scared about old naked ladies, I guess. The takes, it took a little fact I have here is it took 60 takes of this zoom in on Scatman's face, which apparently made the actor actually literally cry with exhaustion. So I just want to add that there. And yeah, I'm the same way. I love Jack's explanation there that, once you rule out that his version didn't happen, you have to assume that he did it to himself. Really? I mean, because it seems like the crazy psycho dad who already tried to rip his arms off once explanation is still on the table here. But, really the whole scene, with them communicating is just, it almost like it doesn't fit to me a little bit. I know that there's, so much more explanation in the book that, to me, they should have put in there though. But, you take out the quote unquote shining part of this movie, and it's still basically, the movie still basically works. And, it's like you said at the beginning, it's about cabin fever and Jack losing his mind in the hotel, just like they said has happened before. But, this is another example to me of Kubrick's choices here that I feel like just kind of seems odd, because the shining part is definitely an afterthought and not really interesting, like, as it should have been, as it was in the book, right. I guess. And I said the same thing about his Danny's performance, like I said earlier. But, besides Nicholson, I know I've shit on the acting a lot in this movie completely. But Danny, when he's in Tony voice to me, it's great. The whole thing with the red rum, I really have always loved that, honestly. And especially when I first heard of it. But sadly, I heard of it from pop culture before I actually watched it, which to me, it was a revelation I would have loved to have seen for the first time watching this movie and experienced it like that. So I will say that.
Yep.
All right, Wendy's smoking and pacing in her room talking to herself. She says that she'll leave Jack if he doesn't want to join them when they leave. She hears Danny saying red rum, and she runs to his room. Danny's not here, Miss Torrance, the voice of Tony says. Wendy tells him it's a bad dream. She hugs him tightly. Jack is walking through the halls, and we hear the officer trying to contact them on the radio. Jack pulls the top of the radio off and stops the radio from working. Halloran calls to check if the officers contacted the hotel. It's 8 a.m. Halloran is on a plane. 8:20 arrival to Denver. Jack is back to the typewriter. Halloran calls the auto shop to get a vehicle that can make it through the snow. Danny looks miserable as he and Wendy watch TV. She says she'll be right back. She's going to talk to Daddy. She grabs the baseball bat as she leaves. All right, fellas. This is some good shit right here coming up. This is some good shit coming up. She enters the room where Jack writes, but it's empty. She goes to read what he's been typing. It's just all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And there are hundreds of these pages, and it's all, it's wrote in different formats. This is some good shit, like I said. There's pages of it. Jack enters and asks, "How do you like it?" She backs away as he approaches. "What do you want to talk about?" he asks. She can't remember, she says. "Maybe about Danny," he says. "What should be done with him?" he asks. Jack mocks Wendy. And I'm going to let you guys get into the dialogue, but there's an intense exchange between Jack and Wendy. But I did write, "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in," because he's asking her to give me the bat. He tells her as they walk up the stairs. I wrote, she has a terrible, terrible bat swing, but she does hit him in the head and he falls down the stairs. All right, Brian, you want to go first on that? That's probably my favorite interaction of the whole damn movie. That is awesome.
I agree. I really love Nicholson's performance in that for sure. I think I jumped ahead in that last scene talking about Danny's, and doing the Tony voice, but still stands. And I noticed, and maybe I missed it, but it looked like the Sidewinder didn't make any zero tracks in the snow whenever it was driving through, when Halloran was driving it up. Maybe it did and I didn't see it, but I missed it a little bit there. Fun fact, probably everybody has here, but Kubrick, made his assistant type out all work and no play, make Jack's a dull boy across 500 pages, as well as in 5 different languages for various foreign releases with their own unique nonsensical phrase. And that's crazy to me. But hey.
He's a little nuts. Yeah.
The scene that Jack has where the line where he says, "I'm be done with Danny, and I'd like to know what they are." To me, like that, and I know this came before it, but I'd seen Batman so many times when I was little. That is pure Joker to me, 100%. Whenever his performance right there, it actually kind of made me laugh some because that's exactly what I was thinking about, and I felt like the scene a bit more little fuckers in there, and I think that it would have came across a little bit more. I would have really laughed at it. And last thing I'll say is, at first I was like, Shelley Duvall holds that bat like an idiot as she backed up, the stairs, because she holds it like, at the top of I don't know what she was expecting to do with it, but apparently she choked up.
Get off her back.
Yeah, she definitely choked.
Whose side are you on here, pal?
But, apparently it was over 100 takes for her to do that scene. So, honestly, those tears from her were probably real. And I totally feel sorry for her, so she can hold that bat however she wants.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think it ended up at like 180 or something like that. It was a lot of takes to get this scene. And, look, the take they used here is great. Like, it is fantastic to me. I just think... God, I can't say enough about Nichols' performance. You already kind of hit the nail on the head there, man. But some of the, he's mocking her, and you've had your whole fucking life to think it over. What's a couple more seconds gonna do, huh? It's just really like so crazy. But he played, Nicholson plays a madman so well, and he plays, straight man in some other, he plays that kind of character well too. But this is the kind of role that is built for his facial expressions, his acting ability. Like, it is so well done. I fucking love it. And again, I'll defend Shelley Duvall for the same reasons Brian did. Man, this is like, who knows how many takes in before they, this is the shot they got. And she was basically tortured on set. She's, for months to a year after, she was physically not well because of how much she went through filming this movie. And right. So this is a scene you could kind of see it in. Like, she's lost some of her hair. Like, it's intense, man. And you feel for Wendy, the character in this scene, or I do. And because, again, she really hasn't done anything wrong here. And he's just losing it again. And again, I can't praise Jack Nicholson's performance there enough. One more thing I will say is that hit to the head. I don't think that would have knocked anybody down for as long as it did him. But that, whatever. It was just like a little bop. Like I've been hit harder than that backyard wrestling on a trampoline, so that's neither here nor there. But really great. Like this is so good. Um, man, again, this is another one that's daunting to break down because the dialogue is what matters here. So I would just recommend to go out of your way to watch this scene. If you watch nothing else in this movie, which you should, but if you watch nothing else, watch this scene. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree. This is another great scene. Great scene. So, first of all, how did Dick get a flight in the middle of the snowstorm? That's one issue I have with it. Like they're hyping this up to be the storm of the century, and you know the hotel doesn't get any traffic for months because of the snow that they get this time of year. He got a flight, no problem, no delays, nothing. He landed on time. Whatever. Maybe just because I've flown quite a bit the past couple of years that I know that life doesn't work that way. But
Overnight
maybe it
date.
didn't. Maybe maybe it did for Dick, and maybe it did in pre 9/11 world. I don't know.
I was gonna say pre 9/11, hell, they'd fly in anything, pal.
So
Cigarettes, shit.
that's true. Another thing that I kind of have not a problem with, but a question mark with, is the usage of red rum as opposed to just murder. Not explain why he's saying it backwards. Not explain why it's red rum in the movie. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. They never explain it away in the movie. I think it's because it's a mirror image of the word murder would be my. But again,
Right. Because
you're
like
right
you said,
though. They should have taken a little time to kind of hit that home a little bit.
yeah, like you said in the opening scene, mirrors definitely play a huge role in this film, or they're prominent in the film, I should say. Anytime you see a ghost or a supernatural being, there's a mirror in the shot, and so perhaps that's the reason. It's because you need a mirror to fully crack the case. Whatever, they didn't explain it worth a shit.
No,
So
it sucked.
it is what it is. Another little tidbit about the film: Stephen King is a huge Boston Red Sox fan. The baseball bat that when he grabbed was actually signed by Carl Yastrzemski. So there's a
Oh,
little
okay.
nod to Stephen King in the film there. I love though when she finds the writings. I absolutely love the fact that Kubrick didn't do a jump scare. He could have. He could have fucked us all up with that.
Yeah.
She's looking, the camera's over her shoulder. We're looking at the pages. He could have scared the shit out of us right there, but he didn't. The way he slid him into the frame made it that much more creepy because it was that much more like he's been plotting, he's been watching, he's been lurking. Now he's here. And the acting that Jack Nicholson does in this scene, it's one thing to say your lines, but when you can watch it on mute and feel the emotions that he's portraying,
Yep.
that's acting your ass off. He is mocking the shit out of her. He's making, like, Jesus, that woman's going to need therapy just because of that one scene. Like, not because of the way that Stanley Kubrick, it's because if she's taking this literally, this man is mocking the shit out of me. I think you have a great idea of what the fuck we need to do. Like, he's belittling her. He's taking all of her adulthood away from her. And that's one of the most damaging things you can do to a person. When you can make a full-grown adult feel like they are literally helpless and useless, that's true terror. And Jack Nicholson was casting true terror over Wendy in that scene. Phenomenal acting.
All right, she drags Jack into the kitchen, and I wrote, she's finally smart enough to unlock the damn door. She locks him in the dry food closet. She grabs a knife and falls to her knees weeping. He yells, "Let me out and I'll forget this happened." She tells him she's going to try and get down the mountain with Danny, and she'll bring back a doctor. He says to go check the radio in the Sidewinder and see the surprise. She goes outside in the cold and sees the Sidewinder has been tampered with. 4 p.m. Jack's asleep. He's asleep on bags of salt, and we hear a knock at the door. "It's Delbert Grady," the voice says. And I wrote, Jack has some good snack choices at least. Jack says, "Give me one more chance to prove that he'll take care of the situation." Grady says his wife was smarter and stronger than he thought, and then the door unlocks. Halloran is driving towards the hotel. Danny walks towards Wendy, saying "red rum" over and over while holding a kitchen knife while she's asleep on the bed. He turns away from her and grabs lipstick He writes red rum on the door. He starts to yell it louder and faster. I want to stop right there and just say the way he uses his voice to say this is so incredible in this movie. Wendy realizes what it spells in the mirror. Jack starts chopping their door down with an axe. She locks her and Danny in the bathroom. And I really love this. Wendy, I'm home, he says as he unlocks the door. She lets Danny out the window, but she can't fit through because of all the snow. Jack starts chopping the bathroom door now. And you see, this is that iconic scene in this movie. Wendy is panicking, and Jack's face is pressed against the door that he's chopped open. Here's Johnny, and she cuts his hand with a knife. And the next two scenes are the ending. Brian, you want to go first right here, man?
Yeah, sure. Come on, you're telling me that she drug his ass all the way to the pantry? Look, there's no chance in hell that Adrian Balboa drags his ass that far. And all right, so the Here's Johnny scene. I mean, this scene is not in the, or that Here's Johnny is not in the book at all. But look, this is an iconic scene that I really honestly don't feel like I can really do a whole lot of justice even talking about because, right. But I will say that they apparently destroyed like 60 doors, I think, doing this scene. Crazy in itself. But my favorite part of that is not even the Here's Johnny scene. It's the Three Little Pigs.
Yeah, me too.
That recites, man. That to me is my favorite part, and maybe it's just because I've heard it in pop culture so many times that Here's Johnny, but I really love the Three Little Pigs. To me, that's even more creepy. Sorry, Shelley Duvall, but the acting to me right here gets a little cringy to me. And I'm not really a big fan of the little scrape that she gave him with the gigantic knife, whenever he was going through the door. But I did give the biggest eye roll there. But honestly, I really don't feel like even I can give this scene justice. But if you have not seen it, definitely, even if you don't want to watch the movie, to get to this part, just YouTube that scene because it's pop culture. It's phenomenon right there.
Yeah, quick fun fact really is they had to actually use a different stunt door because Jack Nicholson was like apparently a volunteer fireman before all this. So he was like chopping the shit out of the door like one swing. So they had to get even better doors.
Nice.
Go ahead, Dustin.
All right, yeah. So dragging him into the closet. Come on, man. Adrenaline makes you do some crazy stuff. Like I once played an entire baseball game with a broken hand, didn't know it was broken because my adrenaline was pumping. You get superhuman strength. So, no, I agree. That's insane. She's not dragging his ass. Devil's advocate here. Yeah, so, then when Grady lets Jack out of the food pantry, it's the first time that you're like, it's not just pictures. Right. Like Tony told Danny earlier, it's not real. It's just pictures. And so then when you see Jack at the bar with Lloyd and even the drink getting spilled, it's just happening to him. Is it just him like imagining shit, like he's going crazy? But when you hear the latch unlock and he gets free, it's like, oh shit, like okay, these people can really get you. This ain't no Casper the Friendly Ghost. These motherfuckers will kill you. So the red rum scene again, it had to be set up just for her to see it in the mirror. I don't know why Tony couldn't just let her know you're gonna get killed if you stay here. It seems like a much more efficient way to convey your thoughts, but he's a kid, so maybe linguistics aren't his specialty. So red rum, that's where we're at. Red rum on the mirror, and murder. He's come to kill us. Okay, let's get out of here. So him chopping down the door and the Here's Johnny line is actually an ad lib. So yeah, it's not in the book. Mm-hmm. It's actually an ad lib from Jack Nicholson, right. And it's not one that was easily translated to other countries because they didn't know who the hell Johnny Carson was. So in other language versions of the film, they have other phrases that they inserted. Most of them said, "Here's Jack," because that's his name in the film and whatever their native tongue was. So Nico alluded to it, or he mentioned the fact that Jack Nicholson was a volunteer fire marshal, and he was just demolishing those doors. Mm-hmm. That scene actually took, according to Shelley Duvall, 3 days and 60 doors to complete. That's how particular Stanley Kubrick is. I appreciate that.
I'm sorry.
Particular. That's what we'll go with.
Particular. And as far as the exit through the window scene, I don't know, man. I don't know. I get it. Like the window wasn't opening there all the way, but I'm finding a way to bust that window out. Like I'm getting the hell out of that bathroom. I'm not staying there. Especially when I just put my kid out into the freezing snowstorm. It was 5 years old, and I'm just expecting him to run around until I get out there eventually. Like that's just bad parenting. And
She's tired from dragging that 220-pound body halfway across the hotel, probably.
no, she stocked up on some Tang, which I'll get into later.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Jeez.
Tang plays a. Never mind. We'll mention the theories later.
Yeah.
So no, if you're gonna put your kid out the window, bust the window the rest of the way out so you can fit out, or I don't know, don't put them out the window.
It's
just
snow. Like, it's snow. Use a knife and dig away. Come on, it's snow. I'm with you.
Yeah. And then another thing, Brian mentioned the little swipe she took at his hand and cutting it. Come on, man, she's scared. She's scared. She's scared. You're going to tell, yeah, we can all talk big shit. When someone's coming at me with an axe, I'd mess him up. But if someone's coming at me with an axe, I might just give him a little pussy swipe with a knife. I don't know, man. I've never been in that situation. So, whatever. And she didn't overdo it. She acted her ass off, Brian. Come on.
Jesus, this is
actually,
Willie Taggart apology.
I actually, hold on.
Nev Campbell crawled right over Ghostface. Didn't even do nothing to him. At least Wendy cut his hand.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, one is a better actress, but that's neither here nor there. I actually like Shelley Duvall's acting in the scene. It didn't bother me at all. I thought it was fine. What I will say is no sane man starts shouting nursery rhymes as he's cutting down a door. So that is literally every time I think of that scene, everyone else thinks of Here's Johnny, but I agree with Brian. The little pigs, let me come in. Oh, so good. The way he says it, the inflection, everything, the facial expressions, I'll blow your house. Oh my God, so good. Can't speak highly about that enough. Some of the other stuff in this scene, maybe I'm in the minority, but the red rum scene here annoys the absolute fuck out of me.
Yeah, no, same.
Hurry up. You don't have to, red rum, like a million goddamn times. You don't, like.
That should have been the name of the film.
It should have been, and it didn't take that many to make me feel uneasy. I already feel uneasy. The movie has me feeling unsettled. Why are we doing this for this long? Like, it's really annoying, and I don't see the point. So, outside of yeah, I know. And by the way, I like to hear Johnny stuff. That's a great scene, great iconic shot. I agree with you guys about the window, though. I feel like if I'm her in that setting, that is the one thing I will critique. Man, bust out of that damn window somehow, somewhere, and don't throw your kid down like it's the damn laundry chute. What are we doing here, man? Like, Jesus Christ. So, but, again, I think she's in crazy fear, doesn't know quite what to do, but somehow she's outsmarting this madman, which is another critique I have. Like, really? Like, okay. But yeah, I agree with you guys about being drove to the freezer closet or whatever, or the dry food closet. I think that it's not that realistic, but for some reason, and I know Dustin's going to get into it, that scene is analyzed so damn much because there's like Cheez-Its in there and Tang and somebody's missing hand is probably in there. Like, there's so much shit to that scene. So we're going to get into it, but I enjoy the fucking nursery rhyme scene the best.
Man, that Wendy, I'm home. I was like, oh my goodness. That's some good stuff.
Oh, so good.
All right, fellas, this is the last two scenes of the movie I got. Halloran is almost to the hotel. Jack hears the vehicle approach. Jack leaves. Danny is back inside. Halloran enters the hotel. Jack hears Halloran's voice. Halloran is calling for them as he creeps through the halls. Jack appears from behind a column and kills him with an axe. He calls for Danny now, and you get like this evil look on Jack's face, and it's so good. He starts to chase him down the halls. Wendy sees some freaky shit in her room. Jack turns on all the outside lights as he chases after Danny. Danny enters the maze, and Jack follows his footsteps in the snow. Wendy sees Halloran's dead body and now sees a butler with blood on his head. Wendy finds a room with cobwebs and skeletons. Danny starts to backtrack in his footprints now. Wendy sees the blood coming out of the elevator now. Danny hides as Jack is confused by no more footprints. Danny comes out of hiding and he follows his steps out of the maze. Jack is lost in the maze and Danny makes it out the maze and runs to his mother. They get in the Sidewinder. Jack falls over as the cold gets the best of him. They drive off as Jack yells and hobbles through the maze more. Jack is frozen to death. His face is kind of goofy looking. I'm sure we'll all kind of critique that. Back into the gold room. And this is the only this part of the movie did kind of confuse me because like I said, I've never seen this movie until the other day. We're back in the gold room. It shows a picture of Jack at the front of the party. It's the Overlook Hotel, July 4th. The July 4th ball, 1921. End of the movie. Mike, this was your choice. Do you want to go first or last, brother? I'll let you pick.
I'll go last. Yeah, let's go last.
All right, Dustin, go ahead and go first, brother.
All right. So, first of all, Dick traveled across the country. And as soon as he gets in the hotel, Jack's just going to stab Dick with an axe? Come on. That's what a shitty way to go. He didn't deserve that. He was too good of a character, too wholesome to be taken out. You wasted Scatman Crothers' time. I have a major beef with his death, especially since in the book he didn't even die. Dick survived,
Right.
but he was still present and alive in Dr. Sleep. But that's neither here nor there. The freaky stuff in the bathroom or in the bedroom. Why? What the hell is that about? Now, I did read that apparently, when the man was getting the blowy from the bear costume, that wasn't explained at all. But in the book, one of the previous hotel managers was having a homosexual affair with a man in a dog costume. That's the closest explanation. But it's still there is no point, zero point for that scene, unless Kubrick had bigger plans that had to get nixed due to time constraints, and I understand that and I respect his decision. So,
Jesus, talking about getting a blowy.
Wow, Jack running into the maze after Danny was crazy to me. You're going to tell me that this 5-year-old kid knew to stop, look at his tracks, cover them up, and then outsmart his dad, who's a fucking lunatic? I don't know. You could say that Jack was encompassed by blind rage, so he wasn't thinking clearly, so he didn't consider that possibility. But the fact that this 5-year-old kid or 7, however old Danny was, the fact that he had the wherewithal to cover his tracks and back out, that's the most unbelievable thing in this movie to me. And there's some ghost in this movie, so that says a lot. The scene where Danny and Wendy reunite and they live happily ever after, that's the good feel good to the movie. You're like, okay, after this 2.5 hour shitstorm of making me unsettled, I could take a breath because at least they live. But again, you mentioned it. The most mind-fucking scene of this entire movie is the final picture.
Yeah.
You get a picture that's captioned 1921 in Jack's front and center. So one of the things that I got to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what he was going for there. I don't know what it means. Nobody knows what it means. It was provocative. So
Gets the people going.
One of the theories, though, is that, when he's in the bathroom and Grady's telling him, it's always been you. So one of the theories is that Jack has been reincarnated. He has always been the hotel manager or the caretaker. And so he's been reincarnated to fulfill destiny again and kill his family again just to repeat the cycle. That's got to be the theory that I go with because nothing else that I can work out in my mind makes any sense, except for the fact that maybe once you die in the hotel or you become a victim to the hotel takes you and it owns you. And so kind of like Back to the Future, you appear in this picture like you weren't there originally and now you're a part of it. So maybe that, but I like the other theory, though, that it's always been him. It's always been Jack. So solid end. He went out like a bitch, but solid end.
Jack is Eric Matthews. Too much anger. Too much anger.
That's right.
Go ahead, Brian.
So, yeah, there was apparently 40 takes for Scatman Carruthers to approach the door. But, and this may be kind of messed up, but I guess the psychic part of The Shining doesn't tell you when you're about to be jacked the fuck up from around the corner with an axe.
Right.
But again, this is another thing that, like Dustin said, didn't happen in the book. He shows up, but he doesn't immediately become, the film's only murderer in that book. But, Dustin kind of touched on this with the dude, and he was actually dressed like a bear doing another dude. But it's exactly what I said was, what the fuck? But, when I looked into it too, there's like you said, there was a subplot in the book with the party guest in the dog costume. But I couldn't find any reason, honestly, at all why Kubrick changed it from a dog costume to a bear. But we do agree that omitting the entire backstory just makes it really weird and out of place. Mm-hmm. But, the subtext that I did read is that, could have been construed to possibly imply that Jack has, sexually abused Danny. So there's a lot of, there's tons of bear references throughout that support that theory. I'll let you guys get into the theories a little bit more. But I did read at least that. Jack's death, it was very disappointing to me, honestly. He's just running, right. And then boom, it cuts to a picture of him frozen. What the fuck? Shouldn't have spent so much time on the 15-minute landscape shots. Kubrick, give him a little bit of better death there. But, and usually, like you were talking about with that picture, man, at the end, usually I'm okay with a little bit of the ambiguity in the movie. It's just that this is too many unanswered questions for me. And there's so much in this entire movie that doesn't really have an answer, like we've talked about before. And I think it's a little bit too much up for interpretation. Like you said, is he consumed in the hotel? Is this a reincarnation thing? Like I said, I'm usually okay with leaving stuff open-ended, but you watch this entire movie and you're rewarded with still having no idea what the fuck really happened. To be honest, you have to just kind of use your brains there. So that's kind of my thoughts on the ending there.
Right. So to me, this ending, as much as I praised, some of this movie, I've nitpicked it too. This ending is blue balls to me. And we've talked about great openings and great endings, and I don't think that this movie has either one. I think the meat of the movie is actually the best part. But to me, this ending, it's a boner killer, man, because I really would have liked to see Jack Torrance kind of get killed by somebody. I don't know who, but whether that be Dick or Wendy or whoever, like I would have rather seen something happen instead of him just running and freezing to death. And the chase scene goes on for entirely too long to me. Like, again, that's something that you could have shortened up and not had him and Danny running through this maze for 10 minutes or whatever it was. Like, just a little too long for me. And we're 2 hours and 26 minutes into the movie here, and that's when the chase scene is still going on. Like, it's still happening, and it's just very, very long and very run on, and it kind of, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but it really does put a damper on my enjoyment of the film. I actually, God, I know Brian's gonna hate me, but I actually think Shelley Duvall's acting in this last little bit is fine. Like, I think it's good. I think she does a pretty good job here. I'm not a fan of her acting overall, but I think for what she was given and told to do, again, tortured on set, I think that the last little bit here was pretty well done by her standards. And I'm glad that Dustin said this. Normally, I'm a guy that can kind of pull for the bad guys depending on the movie, but I like that they get away. That's how bought into their survival that I was. So yeah. I like that they got away. I think that's good. And the ending, okay. We're going to get into the theories here in a second, and I want to try not to spend too much time on it because there's fucking 30 damn theories out there about this movie. There's a whole
only care about one.
By the way, there's a whole documentary that lasts, guess how long? 2.5 hours about a movie that's 2.5 hours long, about all the different theories that the ending or any of this movie could be about. But to me, I agree with you, Brian. It's too open-ended. It doesn't give me any kind of, there's not even clues throughout the movie, the good clues throughout the movie that can kind of make me connect the dots. The most logical one is it's kind of like Back to the Future, like you weren't there, but now but now you are. And I know Dustin said that, but to me, that's the most logical one if I'm just using my logic brain. But again, there's a lot of illogical stuff in this movie, so it's kind of hard to do that. Was it a reincarnation? Were they there the whole time? Like, is something dream? Which I hate those theories. Those theories suck to me. Is this just one big long nightmare of Wendy or something? Like that doesn't do anything for me either. So just a little too open ended. And I like to probably say the Back to the Future kind of thing is the most logical one in my head. It's the one I go to the most, but it's not as fun as some of these other ones that we're about to get into. And again, I said there's a whole documentary about theories on this movie. It's called Room 237. And by the way, if you like that kind of stuff, it's actually entertaining. I enjoy the documentary. I think it's really good. It's a little bit of a deep dive, so bring your brain. But I think it's really well done, and it won, a bunch of awards for just being well done and well put together. So, and they actually, it's not Jim in his mom's basement picking his boogers on the thing either. It's people that work for ABC, people that work for other news places and stuff like that. And so, I will give a big thumbs up to the documentary. I think you should check it out. But I didn't use that for my resource here. I used ifc.com about the 10 most insane theories that The Shining covers. I'm going to let Dustin go first because it is actually the first one on this list. It's about the Apollo 11 moon. Wait, no, actually, that's technically not the first one on the list. The one he wants to do is. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah. So we never landed on the moon. Here's why.
Oh,
so
you had to go there, huh?
Yeah, I'm just speaking what I know to be true, what's real to me.
Okay.
Wow.
So there's a big line of thought that back in the late 60s when America is racing Russia to be the first country to land on the moon, big belief that both countries are full of shit. And when it came down to it, and NASA realized that they've bit off more than they can chew, and they've promised the American people what they cannot deliver, how are you going to back out? You can't admit you're wrong. You can't admit you're wrong. As a government agency, because NASA still was a government-funded agency back in the day at this time, you cannot admit that you're wrong on this stage and to this scale, to this degree. So what they do, they called one of the best, most well-known, well-renowned, well-respected filmmakers of all time, Stanley Kubrick, and had him come and meet with them and discuss, hey, how can we fake this shit?
God damn.
So Stanley Kubrick.
The shit is getting deep up in here right now.
It's okay. I can lighten the mood in a little bit with one of the other theories, but go ahead, Dustin.
Listen, what you don't know is this cap I'm wearing is lined with tinfoil. But Stanley Kubrick brought them out, showed them his studio where he was filming, and they fell in love, and they asked for just a moment of his time, just a couple days in his studio, and they'll clean up after themselves and be on about their way. They wanted to film a moon landing. Stanley Kubrick, being the perfectionist that he is, because that's what he is, perfectionist, everything he touches is perfect. Stanley Kubrick wouldn't allow them on his film set for that long unattended, and he didn't want them to botch it anyway, so he agreed finally, reluctantly, to film it. He had to sign a non-disclosure agreement and was, basically forced to silency. He could never speak on, he could never admit that the United States government, gasp, lies to their people. So, what did he do? What any logical man would do.
Of course.
You know the truth. You know what really, the shake, what's up. But you can't tell anybody, so you're going to allude to it. You're going to put little Easter eggs here and there. This movie is full of them. Here we go, people.
You know how I know it's full of shit? Because you said Stanley Kubrick did it fast. That Joker's never filmed anything fast in his entire life.
I didn't say he filmed it fast. I said they wanted just a couple days of his time.
Oh,
I didn't say the finished product only took, who knows how long it actually
We have Alex
took.
Jones on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Alex Jones.
So if you rewatch the footage, quote unquote footage, the real authentic footage of the moon landing of the Apollo 11 mission, you'll notice that it looks eerily similar to the set of 2001: A Space Odyssey that Kubrick also filmed. The moon actually looks identical. Room 237. I mentioned this earlier. I alluded to it. 237. Why was it not originally 217 like in the book? Well, the moon is 237,000 miles away from the Earth. Little Danny. He's running around, happy-go-lucky kid, when he's riding the fuck out of his big wheel. What's his shirt say? Oh my God. It's an Apollo 11 sweatshirt. Then, when he's playing in the hallway, right in front of room 237, the design on the carpet looks like NASA launch pads. This is crazy. Then you fast forward a little bit further. My man Jack, he's been mollywopped over the head. He's in the freezer, in the dry goods pantry. Sorry. There's a box right beside him that says 39. It's actually 3900. 3900. The launch pad that the Apollo 11 mission launched from was launch pad number 39. Oh, you can't deny this. Next thing. In that same scene, there's clear shots of Tang in the pantry. The old Tang commercials from back in the day were marketed as to, it's the drink of the astronauts. And so he's clearly like a big FU to NASA at this point. Like, the commercials were, it's the drink of the Earth man, blah, blah, blah. And they had kids dressed up like astronauts in the commercials. There's Tang right over his shoulder. I'm gonna cut it short here, but the last two things that I'll bring up are all work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. All ALL could also be A11, which is Apollo 11. So that's something. And then the last thing that I'll allude to was the Apollo 11 vehicle that landed on the moon was called the Eagle. Jack's typewriter is an Adler, which is the German word for eagle. Take it away.
Okay. So I'm glad you presented that one so I didn't have to. Not because I don't necessarily believe it, but because it's so damn deep. What I'm going to do is run through a quick
I believe it 100%, by the way.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. I have a quick gauntlet. Instead of breaking them down like you did, I'm just going to run through a couple and if they make any sense or not. So number 2 is about the treatment of Native Americans, which I think this one is a little more plausible than the moon landing because of the symbolism that they use. There's some Native American imagery and stuff like that, and it took place, Point Place, West Virginia, where a big massacre occurred so there's some truth to mistreatment of Native Americans there. So that could be logical. I don't think that's true necessarily, but I could see where someone would put that together. And again, the part in room 237, the documentary is actually really interesting on that one. So, and then it's about a Greek myth with the Minotaur. Not doing anything for me. It's about the Holocaust, which Brian mentioned because of the number 42. The typewriter is the eagle, where the thing that Dustin just referred to is actually kind of looks like a Nazi symbolism. There's supposedly different Nazi symbolisms. 2 times 3 times 7 is 42. So the number 42 appears a million times throughout the movie. That's, 1942 or, for the solution. So again, the only thing that gives this some substantial credit is Kubrick did write a very Holocaust-centered film called The Aryan Papers. He never made it because he's a Jewish man himself and kind of didn't want to put himself through that. So, but there's some something to that at least. There's people who have watched this movie on 2 different screens at the same time, backwards and forwards, because they're supposed to be mirror images of each other. So that one's a little crazy, but I feel like if you smoked enough pot, you might find something kind of interesting in that, or dropped acid or whatever the hell. It's all a dream nightmare, and that one sucks. It's about CIA mind control, so is every other movie, pal. That's literally what they've been doing for. Anyway, so it's about the Illuminati. Yeah, so is every movie. So here's the most fun one that makes 0 sense and inspired the movie Frozen from Disney. Very similar plots, very similar. There's some certain shots in it that are very similar. Set, the way that they. I just need somebody, if you're listening to this, I need you to go Google it. I don't believe this, but it is actually very eerily similar in style and structure, and there's some stuff here that kind of links the two movies together. It's pretty cool. And by the way, the makers of, another fun fact, I don't know if anybody else has it, but the makers of Toy Story were such big fans of Shining. There's actual, the way they shot Toy Story on a computer and the way they shot there's some similarities there, and they used the carpet from the creepy ass carpet in the Toy Story. So I thought that was kind of a fun little thing connecting. The Shining has been done so many damn times on The Simpsons, Family Guy, anything you can think of, The Chappelle Show. Like it's been mirrored all over the place. So very impactful movie. That's why, again, it has its own documentary about what the hell this movie means, because Stanley Kubrick decided, I don't know what it means. You guys figure it out. That's kind of the way I view it.
Yeah, that was when I went into this movie, I didn't know about a lot of the interpretations, the theories of this movie. But I read a quick article about it. I saw the one about the Holocaust and all that. Y'all ready to jump into fun facts?
Let's do it.
All right. I'll just go first. I got just a few of them from IMDb. We already said this one. The idea for Danny Lloyd to move his finger when he was talking as Tony was his own. He did it spontaneously during his first audition. Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall these are all from IMDb. Jack and Shelley have expressed open resentment against the reception of this film, feeling that critics and audiences credited Stanley Kubrick solely for the film's success without considering the efforts of the actors, crew, or the strength of Stephen King's underlying material. Nicholson and Duvall have said that the film was one of the hardest of their careers. In fact, Nicholson considers Duvall's performance the most difficult role he's ever seen an actress take on. Duvall also considers her performance the hardest of her life. According to Shelley Duvall, the infamous Here's Johnny scene took 3 days to film and the use of 60 doors. To get Jack Nicholson in the right agitated mood, he was fed only cheese sandwiches for 2 weeks, which he hates. The throwing around of the tennis ball inside the Overlook Hotel was Jack Nicholson's idea. The script originally only specified that Jack is not working. And the last one I have is, like we've all said, Shelley Duvall suffered from nervous exhaustion throughout filming, including physical illness and hair loss. Whoever's got fun facts, go ahead and go next.
I just got a couple, and they're basically just other people that were considered for the roles. So Stanley Kubrick, he considered Robert De Niro for the film, but he didn't think that he could portray a psychotic enough character after watching him in Taxi Driver. And he also considered Robin Williams, but he thought Robin Williams was too psychotic after watching him on Mork and Mindy. So
that would be
kind of funny.
I think that would have actually been okay.
I think so too, because Robin Williams does look normal enough to get it, and then he is crazy enough. And we learned from his later roles that he can play a serious role.
A 1 hour photo.
Creepy as fuck.
Crazy in that movie.
Yeah. Right. Some other names that were considered were Harrison Ford, Chevy Chase, Martin Sheen, Leslie Nielsen, Christopher Reeve, and James Brolin. No. All those guys were considered for Jack.
He's already had enough crazy taken over by house roles.
Yeah.
No doubt.
That's true.
So that's all I got, was just those few extra people that were considered.
All right.
Leslie Nielsen would have been god awful. I mean, I like Nielsen.
Yeah, that would have.
But he would have been so bad.
Terrible. That would have made it a straight up comedy, which I'm glad that's not the direction they went. So I'll run through a couple of these off of mentalfloss.com is where I got mine. Stanley Kubrick actually almost got the he was up for the direction of The Exorcist, but he ended up not getting it because he wanted to also produce it, and he didn't think it would be as scary as the movie that he had in mind, which ended up being The Shining, which I don't know if I agree with that or not, but I'm not 100%. Kubrick didn't even read the screenplay that Stephen King wrote, which the screenplay that Stephen King wrote actually ended up being a miniseries in 1990, 4 hours long. It's too long. It's not as good as this movie. Sorry, but it's just not. Let's see here. King, well, we touched on King being not very happy with this. So here's what's funny. He's softened that stance in the last couple of years, where he's come around to some of the stuff that Kubrick did, but he thinks that had he worked with King, they could have created the perfect blend of the two, which is why he still prefers that god-awful miniseries, which I just, man. The rumor is that Kubrick is the one who wrote those all work pages, every single one, by himself, on a typewriter. That's the rumor. He's nuts. We talked about the.
Okay. See, I read that is actually the assistant, so I guess who knows?
Yeah, well, again, like everything else, it's probably up for interpretation.
Yeah.
This was the only movie that Danny Lloyd is in ever. Only credit to his name. He's never been in any other movie. What? Yeah. He kept trying and he kept getting typecast into this role, and he couldn't really land another role because everyone saw him as a creepy little kid from The Shining. So, and you guys talked about Nicholson wrote one scene. It ended up making it into the film. It doesn't say which one. And Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson also did not get along. So that's always fun.
I was going to say he actually does have a brief cameo in Doctor Sleep.
See, this is an old article. They're definitely an old article.
Yeah. That's why you caught my attention with that. He obviously doesn't reprise his role, but
right.
He has a brief cameo as a spectator.
All right, fellas. I've been excited. I mean, I texted y'all earlier. I told y'all I was excited for this. Favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. Mike, your pick, first or last?
I'll go last. Yeah, let's go last.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Nico. We're waiting to hear your thoughts, man.
Yeah, actually, yeah. You go first.
All right, I'll go first. Favorite kill. I mean, there's not a lot to choose from.
Not a lot to choose from.
I chose Halloran. It was cool. I don't have Dead Meat, he did a kill count. Favorite was Halloran, and he didn't pick a least favorite. I'm not going to pick one either. Jack, he just freezes. I mean, I guess that's it. All right, fellas. I wrote down two different ratings, honestly. I wrote down a rating after I initially watched it, but my rating of this movie is a 9.0.
Wow, you like it more than I thought you did. Okay.
I was wrong.
Let's go.
That's why I was quiet all day. I was like, I'm going to build some suspense into this.
I was wrong.
All right, this is what I wrote. I went into this movie with the thought of not liking it, honestly. I saw the runtime and was dreading it. However, I ended up really enjoying it. Jack Nicholson was so damn good. His facial expressions, use of tones in his voice, delivery kept me invested the whole movie. Danny was great as well. It's not easy to get a believable kid actor, but he did great. The Tony voice he did was awesome. This film did a far superior job, in my opinion, of showing the character slip into madness from isolation compared to The Thing. Shelley was good and suffered real-life abuse filming this, which helped her show the emotion. She was vastly outshadowed by Jack, though. Incredible cinematography to me. Beautiful visuals of the countryside, the hallways, the green bathroom in 237, the red bathroom with the butler Grady. I'm not sure how many more times I'll rewatch, but I really like this viewing. Some stuff could be trimmed for sure. Also, pretty much hated the score in this movie outside of the opening. I've read a lot on how hard Kubrick was to work for, but 40 years later, this is still an impressive movie. I read Jack Nicholson from the get. I kind of was quiet all film review. I didn't really do much, nodding my head or nothing, but I really agreed with you, Dustin, a lot. Opening, I didn't think needed trimmed at all. Jack Nicholson had me invested from the get-go. Like I said, I went into this movie I went into the movie preparing to not like it. I had bad intentions going into it, but I think Jack Nicholson is right up there with Robert Englund for this movie, Hannibal Lecter, Tobin Bell. I think Jack Nicholson was incredible in this movie, and I didn't expect to rate this movie a 9. I wrote down 8 at first, but this movie on Saturday after I watched it, it stuck with me all day. There's a lot of interpretation, but I went into this movie not knowing none of that. The only thing I knew was the Here's Johnny, the little sisters at the end of the hallway. I've only seen the basic stuff, and after I got done watching it, I felt some type of way all day. So I gave it a 9. I really liked it, Mike. I really did.
Glad you did, man. That's awesome. That's great.
All right, Brian. Let's let Brian go next. I think Dustin's going to be kind of like where I'm at. I'm ready to hear Brian's now. Go ahead and drop that 4.5.
Hey, and honestly, that's pretty funny because we don't, people may not believe this or not, but very rarely do we talk and know what each other's going to rate a movie and really talk about it because, we don't want to say something that could come across on the pod and actually be a little bit, and, be better or whatever. We want it to be, as realistic as possible. So honestly, I had no idea that what Nico was. I was totally wrong with what he was going to go with. And actually, everything Nico said is completely the opposite for me. Almost every single thing, like I think the score in the opening is too damn long. I mean, I've already kind of gone through a lot of my gripes with this movie. The thing that I can wholeheartedly agree with, and you'd have to be a maniac not to, is to agree with this movie is what it is. Even close because of Jack Nicholson. If you had
Stanley Kubrick.
anybody else, I don't. Yeah, okay. All right, so again, I guess you didn't hear the part where I do not like Stanley Kubrick films, and I had no problem with the runtime in because you're trying, like I said earlier, you're trying to convey a gigantic book. So I understand going into a movie like this that it's going to be long. I don't have a problem with the long runtime as long as it doesn't feel like it's dragging and long. And I felt like it really did in a bunch of spots. And I was just frustrated. And like I said, who am I? I'm not Stanley Kubrick. The dude's considered a genius by most people. I just don't really, I guess, see the same thing that other people do. And, it drags to me in a lot of places. And, like I said, I went into all that, but I gave this movie a 7, and I gave it a 7 because of Jack Nicholson. I really feel like that if you had anybody else in that role, it would have been way lower to me. But the performance is absolutely incredible, and I can't speak high enough about that. There's one kill in this movie, right? So I can't really pick anything else besides, Scatman's, and my least favorite kill. Like I said, I don't really have one of those either. You brought up the Dead Meat podcast. Look, if you haven't watched that, and I really have only seen a couple of them, but I watched that for this movie, and I laughed my ass off at some of the stuff that he was saying. So if you get a second, the dude doesn't need our props at all. He's the number one horror movie podcast out there, and there's a reason for it. But if you get a chance to go watch that episode, I laughed my ass off at some of the stuff he was saying, like the title cards, just the title cards, where he was like, Tuesday title card. Like, it was just, I don't know, I died, laughed my ass off on it. But go watch that. But anyway, my long ass talk ramble was to give it a 7 rating.
He did a kill count about a movie with one kill. That shows you how that goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Two
if you count Jack. Yes.
All right. So, like I said, I hadn't watched this movie 17 years. 17 years ago, I watched it for the first time. Before that, the only thing I knew about The Shining was the Here's Johnny scene because of the movie Twister. The scene in the movie Twister when they're at the drive-in theater and here's Johnny, then the tornado rips the screen in half was more terrifying than anything in this film, but this movie is more creepy to me. So I think this movie is a classic. It's a classic that needs to be, passed down, kept alive. Don't let the memory of this film die because it is that damn good. It holds up over time. I can't wait for the remake that has to star either Edward Norton or David Arquette.
Or Ethan Hawke.
I almost said Ethan Hawke earlier, and I almost said that.
Sorry, I had to get my shit in. So, as far as favorite kill, I don't have one.
Right.
Because, like I said, I just hate how they whacked Dick as soon as he showed back up.
Come on, that was on purpose.
What? What did I do?
Whack Dick. Okay.
Well, they did. They whacked him off as soon as he walked in the hotel. That's
goddamn.
He deserved better.
God damn it.
And Jack whacked
wait a
him
minute. I mean, what's better than getting whacked off the minute you get there?
And then I don't like the way that Jack was offed. Sorry, I tried too hard on that one. I don't like my least favorite kill is Jack's. I don't like that because freezing is a lame ass way to go. Like this movie was 2.5 hours of this maniac's gonna kill everybody, and then he freezes to death. I would have rather him get ran over by the snowcat or whatever the ATV thing was called. But he froze, and it did provide us with a solid meme. Solid meme. Him sitting there frozen with his eyes rolled back in his head, cross-eyed. So, but whatever. It is what it is. Least favorite kill, Jack. Favorite kill, don't have one. Rating, I give this movie 8.25. I love this film. It's not one, like I said earlier, it's not one I'm going to pop in the Blu-ray player and just watch it because, hey, I feel like watching The Shining. But it is something that needs to be rewatched and revisited time to time just to appreciate all the little nuances in a Stanley Kubrick masterpiece. Take it away, Mike.
Okay, so by the way, to go against Brian's theory, I'm actually right in the middle on Kubrick. I think there's some good Kubrick movies, and then I think there's some ones that just no, not my cup of tea. Again, I talked about Clockwork Orange, and this one is really good as well. Full Metal Jacket's pretty good, but that's not my style of movie. So I could take it or leave it. Here's what I'll say. I picked this movie for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I really enjoy it. I think it's not the most super rewatchable movie that we've done, but that doesn't mean that it diminishes in quality. Is it long? Yes. Does that make it a difficult watch? Sometimes it does. Depends on what I'm in the mood for. I would honestly like someone out there to make a supercut of just the Jack scenes. So it'd probably be like an hour and 15 minutes. I would watch the shit out of that. That would be great. But I agree with Dustin. I think the kid actor holds his own. I think Shelley Duvall is not great, but she's okay in some scenes. I think over time, knowing what we know about how she was tortured, I think her performance I can give a little forgiveness to. So really enjoy the movie. I agree with some of Brian's gripes. I do, but I agree with Nico and Dustin a little more. I gave this movie an 8.5. I almost gave it a 9. Again, if there was a supercut of just the Jack Nicholson scenes, I'd probably give it a freaking 9.5 because that's how much I love his character in this movie, and I love the acting by Jack here. It's so fucking good. I can't praise it enough. The script, I have qualms about the script being so open-ended, so it knocks it down a little bit. But I still think it's better than the book, having read the book. So having read the book and seen the miniseries, I think this is the best adaptation of The Shining that there could possibly be. So my favorite kill is Scatman Crothers. My least favorite kill is Jack because freezing to death is fucking super lame. It's like the goddamn Arnold Schwarzenegger scene in Batman. So, whatever. But yeah, really good movie. I'm glad we finally covered it. This is probably one of our longest shows outside of Halloween 2018, but we got it done. We did it. I felt like we did it justice, and like we always did, we had some laughs in here too to kind of even out the score a little bit.
Just imagine if this movie had Alex Vincent as the kid who played Danny from Chucky, from first Chucky. Honestly,
dude, we're talking
Tony.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you did that, Brian. That kid.
I was literally thinking that earlier when we were singing Danny Lloyd's praises. I was just thinking, like, how much better would Child's Play have been had it been Danny Lloyd's?
Very true.
I'm serious.
True.
Like, when you have a kid to be this important, you got to get it right. Like the first Pet Cemetery, Gage is really good. And if Gage wasn't good, that movie is already kind of hard to think is good in some parts, but Gage, he brings the creepiness at the end of it. Danny was great in this movie. I love Danny. I really went into this movie with bad intentions, Mike. I went into the movie thinking I'm just ready to get this shit over with and go on with my Saturday. But after I was done watching, I was like, I need to buy this movie. I'm going to buy it pretty soon.
I'm buying it too.
I was really shocked when I got done watching this movie. I knew Nicholson was good, but I didn't know he was that good. Like, I'm not joking. I think he was every bit as good as. I re-listened to Silence of the Lambs today when I was at work. I think he did every bit as good as Hannibal.
Absolutely.
Or Anthony Hopkins, whatever.
Nico, I'm not messing with you. For real, have you ever seen his Joker performance in Batman?
Yeah, you need to watch it.
I haven't. I've seen it, but I've seen like a lot of the old Batman movies. But it was when I was younger because I loved Batman as a kid. But I didn't watch. I don't remember them.
Yeah, I was about to suggest to everybody go watch the sequel to this film, 1989's Batman, starring Michael Keaton.
And then actually, if you watch 7, okay, if you watch 7, The Shining, and then Batman, you'll get a nice little timeline of congruency there. So that ought to be
fine. I can co-sign that.
They go very well together. Oh yeah, for sure.
Actually, that's a pretty good featurette. If you wanted to watch those 3 movies back to back just for shits and giggles, you're watching 3 really decent films there. So long films, but decent films.
Yeah, you got your whole day booked up right there.
Yeah.
Mike, really enjoyed it. That was our first quote unquote Stephen King movie we've done.
Not
Really
done.
good choice. I mean, kind of. I really enjoyed this movie. Honestly, I really liked it. I'm glad you picked it. Got a damn ambulance or something in the background. Sorry about that, fellas. I'll go ahead and announce my pick next week. Joyride 2001. Really like this movie. I kind of feel bad following up 7 and The Shining with Joyride, but let's roll with it. I like Joyride. It's a guilty pleasure movie of mine. Candy Cane. I'll let Mike do all the impressions. He does that stuff.
I was gonna say I got some impressions for you next week, brother. I promise.
Hey,
Hopefully I'm not
thank
dying
God
a slow
we're
death.
thankfully we are not doing a Rob Zombie film next week, or else you guys would think that I hate literally every director ever.
Just wait one more week, pal. Sorry.
Woo.
Yeah, one
yeah.
more week, brother.
I
Does
think
anybody-
next week's going to be a good way for me and Brian to get back on the same page, and then it's just going to go to hell again the week after. So,
Does anybody have any final thoughts on The Shining?
I'm good, guys.
it's available for $3.99 to rent on Amazon Prime. Watch it if you haven't seen it.
I just ordered the Blu-ray this morning.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray as well. Great pick, Mike. Really enjoyed it. I'm glad you caught me off guard with that one. That's what's so beautiful about this show.
Absolutely.
Some of us, there's been a lot of movies that some of us haven't seen. We're watching for the first time. Like I said, Saturday morning. I ain't seen The Conjuring's, asked Brian.
Got him.
Shit, where my train of thought go? Saturday morning, woke up, watched The Shining. I was like, damn, that was good. I really love doing this show just because I get to watch so many new movies and then get to talk to some of my best friends about it. Hope y'all enjoy this episode. Y'all have a good night. And just want to remind everybody to don't go out there.